Yeah, and if we were really surprised about the results of our elections here in Israel, Canada is truly surprised. Canada is primed for its first new leader in almost a decade after the Liberal Party won a parliamentary majority in elections held yesterday. Justin Trudeau will become Prime Minister, ending Stephen Harper's run in office. I-24 News correspondent Charles Biblazer has the story.
A stunning victory for the Liberal Party of Canada. The lopsided result coming as a surprise to most, as polls leading up to the vote had Justin Trudeau's party only slightly ahead of Prime Minister Stephen Harper's Conservatives. But riding a wave of momentum, the Liberals seized a parliamentary majority, winning 184 mandates and smashing the record for the number of seats gained from one election to the next.
Canadians have spoken. You want a government with a vision and an agenda for this country that is positive and ambitious and hopeful. Well, my friends, I promise you tonight that I will lead that government.
The Liberals, who held only 36 seats in the last parliament, ended Harper's 9-year run in power.
I have spoken, friends, to Mr. Trudeau and offered him my congratulations, all of our congratulations, on his successful campaign. And I have assured him of my full cooperation during the process of transition in the coming days.
The aftershocks are already being felt. Harper has stepped down as leader of the Conservatives, projected to become the official opposition with 99 seats. The left-leaning New Democratic Party came a disappointing third in the election, with 44 seats, less than half they previously held. The 43-year-old Trudeau, son of former Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau, has pledged to run a $10 billion annual budget deficit for 3 years to stimulate the economy. He also vowed to repair cool relations with Washington, tackle climate change, and end Canada's combat mission against the Islamic State. Trudeau is set to be sworn in on November 15th, at which point he will return to the Prime Minister's residence in Ottawa, where he grew up as a child.
And joining me right now via Skype is Barbara Kay, columnist with the Canadian National Post. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Hi, good to be here.
So, Barbara, let's try to look at it in this way. Because if it was a great surprise for the Canadian what just happened yesterday, you could have just asked us and we would have told you everything about it. How big of a surprise was it?
Well, I think the majority, I think the strength of his win was a big surprise to everybody. One of the reasons was that the NDP, the third party, this was our first election where for most of the campaign it was a three-party race. Normally it's two parties, but for the first time it's three parties, and everybody was actually quite suspenseful, wondering what was going to happen. But in the last few weeks, the third party, the NDP, the New Democratic Party, fell away in strength, and it clearly was going to be between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And then in the last week, you could feel the momentum of the Liberals, and it was clear that it was going to be at least a minority government. But then this sweep, this tremendous last-minute sweep into majority territory, definitely surprised most of us.
Barbara, can you explain this to me? Because it seems that it's happening all over, it seems that it's happening all over the world, in Israel, England, Canada, that it's always changing in the last minute. We think that the result is going to be X, and then it's turning out to be Y. How come?
I think there's a lot of pent-up resentment, pent-up anxiety, pent-up feeling that government is not responding to the wishes of the people, but also a sense in Canada, at any rate, that our government is tired. Mr. Harper has many excellent qualities, and his governance was, on the whole, I would say, extremely sound and responsible. But he has not been, he himself is personally has displayed personal characteristics of arrogance and a lack of compassion. I wouldn't say compassion so much. A lack of communication skills, let's say, with his own party that do not resonate with Canadians anymore. They're tired of it. They want something. They want something different, and they like the freshness, the youth, the idealism, and the vigor that Justin Trudeau brings to his party and to Canada.
Barbara, I think that Stephen Harper is calling to thank you, so maybe you should pick up his call.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen.
It's okay, it's perfect. Barbara, thank you very, very much for this.
Thank you for having me.
And with me right now here in the studio, someone who's really, really happy about these elections, Charles Biblisser. Good evening.
The resident Canadian.
Is your phone closed?
My phone is actually not in the studio at the moment.
So let's try to understand what made the change. Because if we're looking at the Canadian economy, let's say the security situation, everything is good. So why the change?
A number of reasons. One, voter fatigue. I think after nearly a decade in power, people simply got a little bit tired of Harper. But Barbara touched upon a very important point. He had become very insulated. His government was inaccessible to a large degree, and they had implemented and passed certain legislation that people were even calling draconian, including an anti-terrorism bill that many viewed as curbing personal freedoms. Yes. So after this long of a time, you know, we live in a democracy in Canada. You know, the voters vote, and certain points, it's time for a change. And I believe that the Canadian people made an emphatic statement. It's time for a change.
It's time for a change also in the foreign policy, because, you know, it's very important for us to talk about, like, the foreign policy of the United States, foreign policy of England, foreign policy of Israel, foreign policy of a lot of places. Is it also something important when the voters are going to vote the foreign policy of Canada, like the friendship with Israel?
It is to a degree, but you have to understand Canada is not a heavy shaker in the international community. That being said, we still are a G7 country. We pull our own weight. The Liberals have traditionally played the honest broker role, so to speak. They really believe in multilateral forums such as the United Nations, which Harper had shunned to a large degree over the last couple of years. As well, there's going to be a change in foreign policy towards Israel, and I only bring it up because here we are in Israel, and there are a lot of government ministers in Jerusalem today who I think are probably a little sad to have lost Israel's best friend.
Yes.
That being said, the Liberals are not by any stretch of the imagination anti-Israel, but they're more you know, they'll abstain when anti-Israel resolutions come up at the UN, and they won't give the full support that you saw from Stephen Harper.
I just ask you one more thing. When you say we, what do you mean, Israel or Canada?
Oh my God. Double identity.
For the first time, Charles,
Absolutely.
in Israel. Thank you very much, Charles.
Thank you, Lucy.